You are obsolete, Mr. Wordsworth.
A lie. No man is obsolete.
You have no function, Mr. Wordsworth. You're an anachronism, like a ghost from another time.
I am nothing more than a reminder to you that you cannot destroy truth by burning pages.
You're a bug, Mr. Wordsworth, a crawling insect, an ugly, misformed little creature who has no purpose here, no meaning.
I am a human being.
Words, Mr. Wordsworth, that have no substance and no dimension.
They want to shut down
like
our
air,
speech.
like the wind.
I don't care. I tell you, I don't care. I'm a human being. I exist.
That's right.
And if I speak one thought aloud, that thought lives, even after I'm shoveled into my grave.
Delusions, Mr. Wordsworth. Delusions that you inject into
You're
your
not getting our free
veins to make
speech.
you think you have a strength when you have no strength at all. You have nothing but spindly limbs
Yeah,
and a
shut
dream.
up, bureaucrat.
And the state has no
Shut
use
up,
for your
control
mind.
freak.
Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God. It's Alex Jones.
That's right. No amount of your staged events or your wind-up toy, drugged-out children of government bureaucrats are going to stop us from taking this republic back. We're going to Sheriff Richard Mack, who was a sheriff in the era of Arizona, who won at the Supreme Court, who knew Judge Roll, who was killed. Got a lot of suspicious stuff going on that front. Then coming up in about an hour, we have popping in for the last 30 minutes, Larry Pratt of Gun Owners of America on this situation. We're also going to be opening the phones up for John, Dave, Harry, Joe, Ryan, and many others. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231. If you're from Tucson and you have any eyewitness reports or anything that's particularly key on the intel front, we're going to open up our phone lines here at my office, but only for people that have bombshell information. 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-ALEX, the main phone system, 800-259-9231. And so I go back as we go to Sheriff Richard Mack to our articles warning everyone back in 2010, top Fed repeats ominous absorb terror rhetoric. All these different White House officials and advisors making chilling comments about how they need staged terror attacks in America to be blamed on domestic groups so that people will then love Obama again and accept their agenda. And it's all right here. In fact, let me just pull you the Robert Shapiro clip. This is just one of them. Clinton and Obama advisor. The bottom line here is that Americans don't believe in President Obama's leadership, said Shapiro, adding, this is Financial Times of London, he has to find some way of demonstrating that he is a leader who can command confidence. And short of a new 9/11 event or an Oklahoma City bombing, I can't think of how he can do that. And I'm sorry to have to talk about mind control, but we know it's been declassified. They have them. You get into Harris and Kleinbolt and Columbine. That was a staged event. It takes hours to go over the evidence. But we're joined for the next 55 minutes or so by a man who really needs no introduction, SheriffMack.com, former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. In '94, he filed a lawsuit challenging the Brady Bill, ruled on by John M. Roll, the judge who was just murdered by the Grim Reaper character, who loves Karl Marx and likes to dress as a woman and burn American flags, but he's a conservative, the New York Times says. He's a lecturer on constitutional issues relating to gun control, law enforcement, and states' rights. And I had the pleasure of having him speak at an event I had in Central California a few months ago. And he's here with us now because he knows the players. He knows the gun grabber, anti-free speech pimp, Sheriff Clarence Dupnick, what a dupe he is to tyranny. And he also knows the late and honorable, and he was an honorable judge, Roll. And he was a sheriff out in those parts, and he won at the Supreme Court. So we're going to go over that with Sheriff Mack. Then I'm going to hit some new intel and get his take on it, and then your phone calls. Sheriff Mack, good to have you here with us.
Thanks a lot, Alex. It's a real sad day for America to address this issue, but especially to address the issue of one of the very few, if not the only, principled constitutional judge in America, and now he's gone. And as you said, He was the judge in my case, and he defended me. Everything that we stood for by principle, he stood with us. He made sure that those who were going after me were shot down, those who were trying to attack. Even my standing, the federal government said that Sheriff Mack can't even sue us because he has no standing, he doesn't represent the county, he's not a county commissioner, therefore has no business and no lawful authority to sue. Judge Roll shut that down. He said the only principle that really matters here is that the government is trying to force Sheriff Mack to violate his oath of office to comply with federal unconstitutional, unfunded mandates. He recognized it. He stood behind it. He had the courage to stand for what the truth was that I was actually trying to do. He's mentioned in all my books, especially from my cold dead fingers. And if anybody wants to pick that up, it's actually the very best quote I've ever heard. Can you imagine, Alex, that a federal judge, and this is on page 19, he said, Congress exceeded its authority under Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, actually quoted the enumerated powers of Congress and said they violated Article 1, Section 8, and therefore Mack wins because of the 10th Amendment. And this also, he was the only judge who heard this case out of dozens and dozens of judges who heard this case at the circuit court level and at the Supreme Court. He was the only one that said this also violated Mack's Fifth Amendment rights because it violates his right to due process.
Now, I want to go more over this, but as we're researching this deeply, it turns out that Congresswoman Giffords, we're going to play this clip next hour, was on Fox News the day before she was shot, and she was talking about breaking the left-right paradigm, coming together, cutting government, cutting congressional spending. If the Democrats and Republicans ever come together against the open borders, against the gun control, against the dollar devaluation, it's game over for the bankers. And I find it very suspicious that Judge Roll, who was for controlling the border and was meeting with her about the deteriorating security, he'd been criticizing that 80-plus miles into Arizona is now controlled by Mexico. It turns out that, and I'm going to get to this a little bit later after you talk more, top U.S. federal judge assassinated after threat to Obama agenda. It turns out that in a key ruling in an SVR report, federal judge John McCarthy Roll was the chief judge for the United States District Court for the District of Arizona, who this past Friday issued what was called a preliminary ruling in the case of United States of America versus the 333-520 in United States currency, and then they have the case number filed, wherein he stated he was preparing to rule against Obama's power to seize American citizens' money without clear and convincing evidence of a crime being committed. So he was going up against the Know Your Customer Patriot Act stuff, and how key this ruling was. There's been other rulings against grabbing people's homes without proper deeds. He was going in that direction. I tell you, very convenient that these two got shot for the Obamanoids. I mean, if this was a so-called conservative out to kill liberals, he sure killed and wounded the wrong people. Richard Mack.
Oh, no question. Now, there's no question that Gabby Giffords is a good woman. She has been very independent. I don't agree with all her views, but she was pro-Second Amendment. She was working against illegal immigration. She has a gun and carries a gun. Even if she would have had a gun in her hand, I don't think she would have been able to shoot back on this particular instance. But yes, when somebody told me that Judge Roll was at her rally, I said, no way. I said, federal judges are not supposed to go to public political rallies like that. And then they said, oh, well, he was just shopping at Safeway and just happened out right at the wrong moment, and he was saying hello to Congresswoman Giffords.
Yeah, now we're told he wanted to meet with her about the deteriorating situation. He wanted to meet with her after. Correct. I think something else was going on. I smell a big, fat, dirty rat.
Well, I did at the very beginning, and when my son called me, I was actually speaking again in California. My son called me in the morning, and he didn't know it was Judge Roll, and all my family know Judge Roll very well because he's in all my books. and they didn't remember his name because he was the first one to hear my case. And I was just absolutely floored at my next meeting when a person in the audience told me that the judge that was murdered was Judge John Roll. This is an absolutely principled constitutional man, a man who would do anything to stand for freedom for our country. And then he gets snuffed out by somebody who actually admits on his own emails that there are such things as mind control, brainwashing, and all this other crap. And then he goes through with this absolute horrendous murder. And how could anyone look at that beautiful little girl and shoot her like that? It has to be somebody who's completely deranged or completely manipulated.
Absolutely. Who could shoot a 9-year-old girl? I mean, you look in this murderer's eyes, and then there's all the witnesses. He's the reported murderer, and he is just completely crazed. But now we learn one personality, he dressed up like a woman. Another, he did devil worship. Another, he went out and helped people locally with their animals. I mean, this guy sounds like the classic multiple personality fruitcake. And now the New York Daily News and others are reporting the teachers are saying in college, he would come in and basically say, I'm under mind control. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, come on.
And I'll tell you another thing, Alex. I told my son who it was. I didn't know this kid's name, but I said, this is going to be a white, deranged, supposed constitutional guy and a loner. And sure enough, here it comes. I knew it before it was even reported who he was.
Yeah, my gut told me that, too. I was hoping above hope. What do you think about the bizarre voodoo? He's got the skull with the oranges. For those that don't know, that's an offering to Beelzebub. You know, even in voodoo, they've got the light and the dark voodoo. This is the darkest type of voodoo here.
Well, these things are real, and that's why you've got to steer away, and what we've said all along is to steer away from those who participate in the Satan worship. It can create a mind control. It can create brainwashing.
Well, why did his parents allow this big tent in the back with sofas? And, I mean, he had a whole setup out there. Well, what parents let their kid have a full-board devil worship outfit?
And again, all of that's crazy. And instead of Sheriff Dubnik, Pima County Sheriff in Tucson, and others in this country, Congresswoman McCarthy now calling for more gun control, if all these idiots would keep their mouth shut and try to investigate and see what went on and attack the problem instead of attacking freedom and the Constitution, we're going to make it somewhere on this issue. But the first thing is, I would ask any sheriff or any police officer, why did not Tucson PD have security there at an outdoor political rally of a congresswoman? Why didn't the sheriff have security there?
When I spoke at Santa Cruz with you, I didn't even ask for it, and they had like 30 people.
I know. Security was everywhere, and I'm glad they were. I was glad to see security at our event there. You had a tremendous event out there. It was jam-packed, standing room only, 900 people, maybe 1,000, both nights, 2 nights in a row, and there was security there. She's a congresswoman, for God's sakes, and she's 1 hour, she's 60 minutes from the border, and they have no security at an outdoor event for her?
When there are public hits on members of Congress, federal judges, and sheriffs on record that have been standing for border control.
Yeah, and this Sheriff Dubnik has been criticizing all the other sheriffs who have been fighting the illegal immigration. He with the other sheriff from Santa Cruz, Sheriff Estrada, those two have been fighting the other sheriffs, and these are sheriffs who are getting shot at multiple times, deputies and others getting shot at out in these desert areas where the cartels are now bleeding over into Arizona, and these sheriffs are putting their lives on the line, Sheriff Babu especially, in Pinal County, which is right next to Pima County. And then Sheriff Dubnik, what does he do? He criticizes the sheriffs, tells the entire nation that illegal immigration is not a problem, and those of you trying to fight it are a bunch of racists and bigots. How absurd can we get?
And he's saying that it's our fault when this Grim Reaper Marxist lover never said anything about immigration.